The hearing room was cold, not from the air conditioning, but from the weight of power and scrutiny it represented. Jasmine Crocket sat poised, aware of the tension buzzing through the Rayburn House office building. Cameras clicked, news crews waited, and today's story centered on her, a big-name contractor exposed for misusing federal funds meant for rural infrastructure. Seated nearby was retired Judge William Drexler, a man who wore entitlement like cologne, smug and untouchable for decades. Jasmine had done her homework, knowing Drexler's ties to the contractor and his history of dismissed cases. As the hearing began, Jasmine questioned the CFO of McKenna Infrastructure Group methodically, pinning him on mismatched invoices and ghost payments. Drexler scoffed into his mic, loud enough to be heard, but Jasmine didn't flinch. When she pressed the CFO on a suspicious $845,000 payment, Drexler interrupted, calling the hearing a witch hunt. Chairwoman Gates warned him, but Drexler smirked, adding, "I just thought hearings were meant to seek truth, not make someone from the projects feel important." The room froze, but Jasmine remained calm, turning back to her questions. Drexler kept needling, calling her questions rehearsed, and suggesting she had a future in television rather than politics. Jasmine didn't react, but when he muttered about her being emotional, she finally locked eyes with him. "I've had to fight for every room I've walked into," she said, her voice steady. "I stayed because I did the work, unlike people like you." Drexler's grin faltered as she exposed his advisory role with McKenna during the time funds vanished. The room's silence turned damning. Drexler, sensing his control slipping, snapped, "You're out of line!" Jasmine didn't blink. "No, you're out of office." She listed his corrupt rulings, including one tossed after a dinner with a defendant's lawyer. Drexler's veneer cracked, his voice turning venomous. "You want respect from people like me? Keep dreaming. You'll never be one of us." Jasmine replied coolly, "I don't want to be. You climb by stepping on people. I stand on my own." The crowd murmured. Even Chairwoman Gates didn't intervene. Jasmine then dropped the bombshell. Subpoenaed emails proved Drexler had directed payments to shell companies. As Drexler sputtered, 2 federal agents entered, handing him a sealed indictment for obstruction and bribery. The room froze as Drexler's hands shook, his arrogance crumbling. "This is political!" he yelled, but the agents cuffed him. Jasmine watched, silent as he was led out, his final snarl, "You have no idea who I know!" falling flat. "I know who I am," she said, and the hearing resumed. The fallout was immediate. Clips of Drexler's arrest went viral with headlines praising Jasmine's composure. Pundits called it a masterclass, while others whispered it was performative. But Jasmine didn't engage. She declined interviews, focusing instead on the next hearing, environmental fraud in Oklahoma. A reporter asked, "What was going through your mind when Drexler mocked you?" She replied, "I've heard worse. He said what many think but won't say. Dignity beats arrogance every time." That night, alone in her apartment, Jasmine reflected on her childhood in Oak Cliff, the bus rides, the library where she'd first watched court hearings, the black lawyer who'd stood tall even in defeat. She'd never learned that woman's name, but now emails from young girls called her the same inspiration. One wrote, "You reminded me I belong in every room." Jasmine didn't reply, letting the words settle. The fight wasn't over. Corruption persisted. But now there was a record. Days later, politicians scrambled to distance themselves from Drexler. Some praised Jasmine, others tiptoed, afraid to upset their base. She ignored the noise, speaking instead at a high school in Shreveport. A 15-year-old asked, "How do you stay calm when they say you don't belong?" Jasmine stepped closer. "Because I know why they want me to feel small. Don't argue. Just grow. The truth handles the rest." The girl nodded, clutching every word. Back in her hotel, Jasmine drafted notes for the next hearing. The applause would fade, but the work remained. She thought of her mother, of nights when the power flickered because bills were late. Those quiet struggles had shaped her, not the headlines. Real power, she knew, wasn't in titles or robes, but in showing up when no one watched. Drexler had unraveled because she refused to stoop to his level. The world had seen it. Now they'd remember. The lesson was clear. Let them underestimate you. When the truth comes out, it speaks for itself. Jasmine didn't need to shout. Her calm, her preparation, her refusal to bend, that was the victory. And as she closed her laptop, she knew the next fight awaited. But this time, they'd all be watching. Not just for the spectacle, but for the woman who proved power isn't taken. It's earned, one quiet step at a time. The media frenzy continued, dissecting every frame of the hearing. Some called it a turning point, others a fluke. But in courthouses and classrooms, people replayed Jasmine's words. A law professor in Chicago showed the clip to her class saying, "This is how you dismantle corruption." A single mother in Detroit pinned Jasmine's photo to her fridge, telling her daughter, "See, she's like us." The moment resonated because it wasn't just about taking down a bad guy. It was about who got to define justice. Drexler, now in a holding cell, ranted to his lawyers about political sabotage. His allies quietly distanced themselves, scrubbing his name from donor lists. Meanwhile, Jasmine's team fielded calls from advocacy groups, urging her to run for higher office. She waved them off. This wasn't about climbing, she told her chief of staff. It was about the work. Yet her inbox flooded with requests, speeches, endorsements, even a book deal. She ignored them, focusing on the subpoenaed documents arriving daily. The McKenna case widened. More names emerged: lobbyists, lawmakers, even a state attorney. Jasmine reviewed files late into the night, connecting dots others missed. Her staff marveled at her stamina, but she knew the stakes. Every fraudulent payment was a road not built, a school not funded. Drexler's arrest was just the beginning. At a closed-door briefing, she laid out the evidence, her voice firm. "This isn't partisan. It's theft, and we're not done." Outside, the world kept spinning. Memes compared Jasmine to iconic TV lawyers. Late-night hosts joked about Drexler's comeuppance. But in a homeless shelter in Dallas, a woman hugged her son, pointing at the TV. "That's why we vote." Jasmine's face wasn't just on screens, it was in the minds of people who'd been told they didn't matter. And that, more than any headline, was the victory. A week later, Drexler's bail was denied. Judge Elena Ruiz, a no-nonsense jurist, cited his flight risk and pattern of obstruction. The courtroom erupted. Jasmine, watching from the gallery, didn't smile. She took notes, then left before reporters could swarm. A young journalist chased her. "Congresswoman, any comment?" Jasmine paused. "Accountability isn't partisan. It's necessary." The quote ran everywhere, but she was already back at work. The high school in Shreveport invited her back. This time, the gym was packed. Kids held signs. "Be like Jasmine." She spoke off the cuff. No podium, no notes. "They'll tell you you're too young, too poor, too whatever. But the system only works if we push it." Afterward, a boy asked, "Weren't you scared?" She laughed. "Terrified. But fear isn't weakness, it's fuel." The principal later said it was the quietest the students had ever been. Behind the scenes, Jasmine's team prepared for the next hearing. A mining company dumping toxins in tribal lands. The files were thick, the witnesses fearful. "They'll come after you," her aide warned. Jasmine shrugged. Let them. She'd seen the playbook: smear, distract, intimidate. But she'd also seen it fail. Drexler's mugshot was proof. On the eve of the hearing, a conservative pundit tweeted that Jasmine was grandstanding for cameras. His followers piled on, but an unexpected defender emerged, retired General Cole Bennett, a Republican, who wrote, "I've known crooks like Drexler. Crockett's the real deal." The tweet went viral, bridging divides. Jasmine didn't acknowledge it. She was reviewing testimony, highlighting inconsistencies. The work didn't stop for praise or attacks. The mining hearing was explosive. Executives squirmed as Jasmine unveiled internal memos ordering cost-cutting at the expense of safety. One stormed out, earning a contempt citation. The tribal chairwoman, tears in her eyes, mouthed, "Thank you." News outlets called it Drexler 2.0, but Jasmine corrected a reporter, "This isn't about me. It's about their drinking water." The distinction mattered. That night, her father called. "Your mom would have loved this." Jasmine's throat tightened. She remembered her mother's hands, rough from double shifts, stuffing pamphlets about voting into her backpack. "It's not enough to be smart," she'd say. "You gotta be ready." Now, Jasmine understood. Ready wasn't a moment, it was a practice. A month later, Drexler pleaded guilty, avoiding a trial. His sentencing was set for fall. Jasmine didn't attend. She was in Arkansas, touring the half-built roads McKenna had abandoned. Locals cheered her arrival, but she insisted, "This isn't a victory lap, it's a reminder." The contracts were being rebid, the funds redirected. Progress, slow but real. Back in D.C., a freshman congressman stopped her in the hall. "How'd you stay so calm with Drexler?" She smiled. "By remembering he wasn't the audience, the people, the ones watching at home, the ones waiting for justice. They were." He nodded, starstruck. Jasmine patted his shoulder. "Just do the work. The rest follows." The media cycle moved on. But Jasmine's impact didn't. Law schools added the hearing to curricula. Activists used her clips in trainings. And in Oak Cliff, a mural went up, her face alongside civil rights icons. She hated the attention, but her staff insisted, "It's not about you, it's about what you represent." On the anniversary of the hearing, a documentary crew asked for an interview. Jasmine declined but suggested they talk to the families in Arkansas now with clean water, the tribal leaders who'd won reparations, the young lawyers inspired to fight. "That's the story," she said. The crew left disappointed but wiser. Years later, when asked about Drexler, Jasmine would say only, "The system worked that day. No gloating, no grudges, just facts. And if you watch the footage again, you'd see it. The moment power shifted, not in the yelling, but in the silence after, when the truth spoke, and the world had no choice but to listen."